Hey everybody, we're going to be getting started in just a few minutes. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III from WGBH. I'll be your host tonight for this, our first ever virtual Boston Talks. We're really excited to have you with us. As you can see, if you can see the panoply of folks on the screen right now, we've got a great team working behind the scenes and some great speakers who we're going to be talking with throughout the evening here, all about how the restaurant industry is dealing with this coronavirus crisis right now. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you so you know. If you are an attendee on this call, we cannot see or hear you unless we actually call upon you to be seen or heard, but we do want to hear from you. You will see that there are some functions in a little toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. If you want to ask questions of me or of our guests who I'm going to be interviewing, we're going to ask you to use that Q&A feature. You'll see that. And one of the cool things that we really like about the Q&A feature is that you can also go in there and give a thumbs up and vote up some of the questions that other people ask. And we're going to be keeping an eye on that. So if you see questions pop up in there that you really want to hear one of our guests address, give it a little thumbs up. That would be great. If you're having technical questions or you want to ask stuff of the staff at WGBH as we're going through this, use the chat function if you could. That's also, you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Otherwise, sit back, relax. This is what we like to bill as our smarter happy hour normally. We usually have some snacks and some beer and wine and such at the WGBH atrium where we usually do this. I myself have got a local brew right here. I've got my Jack's Abbey. And this would be a great time right now if you want to enjoy of a beverage to go grab one before we get started in just a couple minutes. So hang with us. Really happy to have you with us. This is an experiment. We hope it goes okay, and we're glad to have you with us.
I'm doing a live interview, and they said get a cocktail. I'm like, okay. That's so sure. On what?
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screens up, and we got 2 out of 8 who immediately got up to go get themselves a drink. Well done, following directions. Ming Tsai, a man you don't have to ask twice to go get himself a cocktail.
Sí.
Well
Patron
done.
plata, no problema. It's the only way to get through this. I now own 1% of Patron tequila.
1%.
No, just kidding. By the amount I've drunk, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, when I was a kid, my grandfather, I suppose, like he would, for our birthdays, he would buy us like stock in something, like a couple shares of stock. And he bought me stock once in McDonald's. And we used to drive by this McDonald's, and my dad would be like, you see that McDonald's up there? And I'd be like, yeah. He's like, you own one nail in one spot at McDonald's.
You know what? It's probably worth 4 nails now. So
Yeah, I know, right?
Not bad.
Hey everybody, if you're just joining us, we're going to be getting started officially in just a minute. Want to just welcome you to our first ever virtual Boston Talks, our smarter happy hour, done sort of in absentia, all by ourselves and all together, physically distancing and socially coming together. We're going to be talking tonight with restaurateurs about how they are handling the COVID-19 crisis. Some really great speakers lined up. I'm really excited to have you with us. And we'll be getting started in just a minute. So thanks for coming along. Who's cuckoo clock that? Who has a cuckoo?
What did Boston Globe and News in Boston say today about where everything is currently?
I mean, I think the general consensus is we're sort of square in the peak right now. So it's just, everybody's kind of all hands on deck and, kind of try to weather the storm for the next couple days, week plus, we'll see. But we're sort of in it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they claimed 7 days past New York, right?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah. Strange times. It's like
Really?
that show Stranger Things, right?
Yeah,
We're in it.
we're in the upside down.
We're totally upside down.
In the upside down.
Crazy. I don't know if I'll stick my hand into one of those trees or whatever that was.
No, I mean, like you see a tree like that, the first thing you're going to do is not stick your hand in it.
Yeah, and then your whole head.
Like, yeah, like there's no way if I see a tree sort of glowing
No.
like that and sort of opening up and calling to me, that
Yeah.
like the last thing I'm going to
No.
do is put my hand into it or look into it. No way.
Yeah, exactly. But that's Hollywood, so.
Yeah.
I have watched the entire Star Wars series with both my kids and wife, and trying to explain to my wife that it started in the fourth series, but then Rogue One is between 3 and 4, and it's because it's a very non sequitur. Goes, wait, I thought Anakin was dead. No, he's not dead. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is officially start time, official start time of our first ever WGBH's first virtual Boston Talks. This is something that we have been doing for some time now. We do it regularly at WGBH normally. Today, I'm doing it from the comfort of my living room in Somerville, and we're glad you're attending from wherever it is you are. This is a little bit of an experiment for us, so we hope you will sort of bear with us through this, but we think we've got a really fun evening lined up for you, and we're really happy that you're here with us. I want to kind of do a little housekeeping before we get started. First and foremost, most importantly, we bill this as our Smarter Happy Hour, so don't be afraid to go into that refrigerator and get yourself a drink. If you've got something nearby, I've got my local brew right here, Jack's Abbey, so we're happy to have you take a moment and go grab that. For those of you who are on this, if you're attending, just so you know, we can't see you, we can't hear you. We might have a few opportunities to actually see or hear from one or two of you later in the evening, but generally speaking, you're cool. Don't worry, you're not on camera. But we do want to hear from you. So we have two sort of ways that we can hear from you. If you look at your screen at the bottom, if you haven't used Zoom before, don't know kind of the ins and outs of it, you'll see there's something called a Q&A feature. If you want to ask questions of our guests, everybody that I talk to tonight, I'm going to talk to them for a bit, and then I want to hear your questions for them. So if you have questions for our guests or for me, we want you to pop those in the Q&A function. You can also vote up, give a thumbs up to questions if you like the questions you see in there. So please interact on that Q&A area if you can. If you have questions or comments for the GBH staff or GBH in general, or you're having technical issues that you're trying to sort out, you can do that in the chat window. You can see also, just hit the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Before we get started, I kind of want to just introduce some of the team that's going to be with you here tonight. I, of course, am Edgar B. Herwick III, normally from WGBH's Curiosity Desk. You can hear me regularly on the radio on 89.7. You can see me occasionally on WGBH television. And tonight, I am your host for our virtual Boston Talks. Our theme tonight, we always have a theme, and our theme tonight is COVID-19 and how the local restaurant industry is dealing with that, handling it, and how they're thinking about things and what you can do to help. So we've got some guests who we're going to talk to through the evening, but we also have some staff who are going to be helping us out, and I want to introduce them. So we have Abby Ballou, who is our event producer, the person behind everything, pulling all the strings, making sure this happens. Keep in mind, Abby does a great job, and if there are technical issues on my end, they're my fault and not Abby's fault. That's to be sure. So, Abby,
hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We are so happy to have you, and together apart, here we go.
Another WGBHer, Liz, will be keeping an eye on that Q&A box. So if you want to get active in that Q&A box, she's going to kind of be monitoring it, making sure it's working. And if you get too off color, she's going to have to boot you out. I'm sorry, right, Liz?
Yes, definitely ask all your questions, and we're happy to have you. Ask away.
And we've also got Jen, who is responsible for keeping an eye on the chat window. So specifically, if you're having issues with the stream or technical issues, you have questions about WGBH or what's going on in front of your eyes, Jen's your woman, and she's going to be keeping an eye on the chat window. So, Jen?
Yep, absolutely. Fire away.
And I want to introduce our guests for the evening, who we're going to be speaking with. The way it's going to work generally is I'm going to spend about 10 minutes or so talking with each of our guests, And then after that 10-minute period, we're really going to look to that Q&A section to keep the conversation going with them, maybe for another 10 minutes or so. So don't be afraid to ask away as I'm talking with the guests, and we'll eventually turn to your questions and get as many of them answered as we can. So without further ado, let me kind of go around and let you know who you're going to be hearing from tonight. First up, we'll hear from Ming Tsai of Blue Ginger and public television fame. How you doing, Ming?
Good. Nice. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's great to be apart together, for sure.
We've got Katrina Jazayeri and Josh Lewin from Juliet in Somerville.
Hey everyone, thanks for having us.
And we've got Ayr Muir, who's the guy behind Clover Restaurant. So Clover's man in charge is with us as well. How you doing, Ayr?
Hey everybody, I'm really happy to be here. Ming, I loved watching you when I was younger. So this is I wish we were in the same room, but I'll take the virtual connection.
But Ayr, you're older than me. How's that possible?
I was gonna say, Ming, he just called you old. It's like when the room
Like very old. It's okay.
Not the intent at all.
It's okay, dude. I am old.
And Josh and Katrina, really good to see you guys.
Nice to see you.
All right, we're gonna say bye to Josh and Katrina and Ayr for the time being. And I'm gonna spend some time right now with Ming Tsai of Blue Ginger fame. Ming, how you feeling, man?
Hello, Edgar. First of all, it's Blue Dragon now, right? We closed Blue Ginger a couple years ago. That's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's all good. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's cray, right? It's crazy times. And, you know, I can proudly say for us chefs and restaurateurs in this industry, we always do what we do in disasters, right? We try to step up and provide, you know, a meal, which is providing hope. And oh my God, and you know, going back to what 9/11, then Katrina, then of course Boston Marathon bombing, and you know, then with Jose Andres in the Bahamas and Haiti, and we're always there. But this one is so different, right?
Yeah,
this one is just, we can't gather, and all of us chefs, right? All the men and women and the restaurant owners, we're a fraternity, right? And we don't care if we have to work 18-hour days in Bahamas and do 25,000 meals, because we get to gather and hug it out and have a tequila and all that. And that's been the hardest, right? That we're, you know, together apart. That's really hard. That's hard for every family that's not with their loved ones. And you can imagine, you know, I had parents that are in Hawaii that are 85 and 90 in a retirement home. And so you cannot not stop thinking about what if, and we all done it. I mean, I don't know how many times you've been down your rabbit hole, but I've been down it so much I have no more tears, right? And when you come out of it, you finally realize, you know what? I think Ayr said this earlier, you live today. And today's the only day you can live. And if you can somehow make a difference today, and if everyone kind of does that, we're going to be better off, because, you know, we are better than COVID-19, right? This has been the largest challenge financially, mentally, spiritually, period, that any of us in any of our lives are probably ever going to experience. Thank God, hopefully the only time. But we're still mankind. And if we don't, I've been saying this since day one, the most important thing we have to maintain and be is to be kind. We just have to be kind. And you've seen acts of kindness across the board, which is awesome. Because today, there's 3 types of people in this world, right? Forget about your color of your skin, sexual identity, political persuasion, forget all that. You are either healthy, infected, or dying. That's it. The whole world has 3 classes of people right now. So we have to take that person to our right and our left and bring them in, of course, social distancing, but I mean metaphorically, and take care of the people to your right and left. Because all we are Homo sapiens. We are all human beings, and that's our common thread. But you're only one of 3 people right now. You cannot be out of this group of 3. So knowing that, we just try to step up and do what we can.
So you know, it's interesting because, you know, as unfortunate as it is to hear you talk about other tragedies that have happened, and, you know, you're a successful restaurateur, a successful chef. You have a network of people around the world that you know well. And again, like, it's unfortunate, but you almost, it sounds like, had a bit of a template for how to be able to take your position and pitch in in the case of a tragedy. But as you said, this one's different. So what have you been doing, or have you been able to do anything under these circumstances?
Yeah, I'm very blessed, as you mentioned, the network of us chefs. I mean, it is certainly nationwide, if not worldwide. So I voluntarily closed Blue Dragon the Friday before, I think it was Monday, it was mandated. And I did that just as a quick side note, because I took out half my tables, so I'm 50% trying to do the social distancing, right? But it didn't work. Young people, my Blue Dragon is mostly young millennials, 20 to 30. They were toasting in groups to coronavirus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's it. We're cutting this off. So we closed the next day. I immediately, because as a chef owner, I had 28 employees at Blue Dragon. And I just knew that, one, I have to take care of them as much as I possibly can. So I very proudly gave them each $1,000 extra, as it almost covers another paycheck. But I know I can't give everyone 15,000 each, right? Because then I'm bankrupt. But I know I had to feed them. And Christine Canlis, my chef, exec chef at Blue Dragon's like, chef, we got to stay open and feed them, and we'll just start we'll do a no contact to go. So that Monday we started the no contact to go per CDC protocol. So it's a bag, gloves, mask, preparing the food, and the bag is put outside on a table. Your name is on it. You've already paid for the credit card. So we started that to go, no contact, and then we made staff meal. So we reached out to the entire staff. So guys, we still have staff meal. Please come get it. Obviously, it's free. And only a few showed up. And we're like, there's a pride thing. Do you really want to have to go and wait in line and get food? And so there's all these, just the shame, right? That, I mean, I can't say I've yet to wait in food for wait in line for food. So there was that, and we continued. So we started delivering, because most of them live in East Boston. So again, Christine and Gabe, my sous chef, were delivering the food to them, and that was fine. But to-go food was fine. I mean, bluntly, we're doing 10% of normal revenue. So it doesn't take an accountant or rocket sciences to know you can't sustain on 10% of normal revenue. I don't care who you are, right? But then fortunately, there's a great chef named Ed Lee, who's a buddy of mine from Kentucky. He's been on Simply Ming a bunch of times. And once you meet a chef, this is probably 20 years ago, or 15, I met Ed. And he very smartly approached Maker's Mark. And this is a good thing. Thank God Ed does like bourbon, and Maker Marks likes Ed, and the only reason I bring it out, and they do get a huge hats off and a huge tip of my hat, because Ed said, hey, look, you have a budget in San Francisco and LA and Boston and New York and all these cities to do promotions and do events and whatnot. Well, you're not doing gathering events, so give me the money instead, and I'll pick a chef in each city and we'll do food banks. And Maker's Mark's like, that's a great idea. We'd love to be part of that. So we did get Boston. Ed called me to do Boston, and I got seed money to at least bring back 4 or 5 of my cooks, plus continue paying my salary. My 3 salary managers, the one that continued to go. And proudly now, the first week was kind of slow, and no one was showing up. And we found out by speaking to our own cooks and dishwashers who live in East Boston, like, chef, we're too scared to ride the T. We're too scared to get in an Uber. Yeah. That's why we're not coming. So we're like, okay, I got to solve this. So fortunately, through a great guy, Todd Saunders, who used to own a bunch of food trucks, hooked me up with Ernie Campbell, who owns Jamaica Me Hungry, which is the restaurant in Jamaica Plain, who has a food truck. I called out Ernie and says, Ernie, look, can I use your truck? I want to bring food to East Boston. And he absolutely says, chef, I'd love to help out. So now we're bringing every day, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock, almost 300 meals now. It keeps getting larger, unfortunately, to East Boston, 1 o'clock at the Orient Heights Tea Stop. So we're on this right next. If you get off the Orient Heights, you'll see this Jamaica Me Hungry. So there we're passing out the majority of our food. But we also have a whiteboarded toiletries. So no, we don't have a lot of Purell, but we have diapers and formula for people with babies, and we have raw rice and raw beans. For me, if you can cook a pot of rice in the Asian culture, or for the Latinos, some rice and beans, that normalcy, right? That's a little ray of hope that you actually get to cook something. So that's been very popular, plus all the paper goods. And we do the same at Blue Dragon, 7 days a week at Blue Dragon, 3 to 5 o'clock. But again, a lot of people aren't coming to Dragon because it's Seaport and not a lot of people live by. But we're still continuing that as Dragon as well. And if you want to know how you can support, go to Lee Initiative. And you can certainly give money if you have the capacity to do that. We've had a lot of our friends actually go to Amazon and drop ship toiletries. There's a list that we have that would be ideal people could buy. So we got a lot of support that way. A lot of local people like John Keneally, Kim Martin, Trimark, B&W Watercress in Florida, they're all donating food. The Boston Food Bank has been an awesome partner. And the more we can get food donated, the more the seed money can continue paying the payroll of the people I have back. And so it feels good to at least be feeding, about 300 Boston, restaurant people. The tragedy, everyone has their own story, but the ones that I still lose sleep on and have cried enough tears on, or too many tears on, are the people that are under the radar, are the people that are not going to get unemployment checks and not going to get a bailout. And their last check for me was their last check until this thing clears. And I have a cook that has a 3-month-old baby. And you just ask yourself, how are they going to get through this? They can't go home. They're the ones that send money home. So there's nowhere for them to go. And, thank God the landlords and the people that do have capacity are realizing we can't just start evicting everyone. And that doesn't help them either, right? They'd rather, give them 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or whatever, and then eventually get it back. We've been lobbying. The government says, look, guys, this is what has to happen. You have to, especially for all of us that have business interruption insurance. We've been paying thousands of dollars a year, for me, 22 years, for a business interruption like this. If the government just seated the insurance company with that $1 trillion, whatever that number is, and then let us hold our heads high that we're getting our insurance money that we deserve. I mean, I don't want a handout. I've been working my entire career not for a handout, right? I want the insurance that I'm entitled to because I've been paying for this. And I know there's a bunch of chefs going now to try to reason with the federal government, but oh my God, Jose Andres, who's our hero of all heroes, 2 weeks ago in Sunday New York Times had the great op-ed about if you seed and fund the restaurants, pay for their utilities, rent, food, and employees, and then let them make food for the other 300 million people in this country that need food. Let all these mom and pops become food pantries. You've solved a huge economic crisis, because not only if I'm not in business, I don't buy meat and fish, and I don't go to the linen company, and I don't use trash and recycling. My customers don't use Uber. The domino effect is trillions of dollars. You need to keep the restaurants working. So much more important than keeping the cruise lines, the airlines, the gas companies solvent now. They can just borrow money. They're large enough to borrow money. All these mom and pops, there's a stat I read, 50% of all Chinese and Chinese American restaurants in this country are either closed or will be closed by the end of this. 50%. That's just crazy. Crazy.
All right, I'm talking with Ming Tsai from Blue Dragon and PBS Cooking and cookbooks and you name it. Ming, I'm going to turn it over to some of the questions in our Q&A right now. We've got a question from Rohid or Rohid D. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but the question is, both restaurants and COVID thrive on crowds. How do you trade off economics and health? Is it just a pure ethical issue?
I don't quite get the gist of the question. I mean, is the person suggesting that it's dangerous doing no contact to go, or is she saying when we come back and reopen?
I mean, I think it's more managing when you come back. The idea that we know that you can't really have a restaurant without a crowd. We know that that's COVID-19 needs to keep spreading. So how do you balance those?
It's an awesome question, and this brings me back to the bailout that's been announced for us restaurateurs, right? We get 2.5 times our monthly payroll of last year. And that in theory is a great number, but it doesn't include that when we do reopen, let's say June 30th, that I can bring my entire staff back. It's based on how much staff I bring back. So I can't bring my whole staff back because I may not even open for lunch ever again, because people in the seaport may just work from home because that's what they're doing now. It also doesn't include that I still need to pay, the insurance I've been paying every day, right? The rent I still been paying every day and all these other things. And it definitely also doesn't include that if we do reopen, we're supposed to have 50% capacity. So no restaurant that I know of can just survive on 50% revenue. I mean, our margins are so tight. But it can be done. I mean, we've been very safe to protocol with the mask, gloves, the whole 9 yards with no contact. You can serve a restaurant with the waiters and the cooks, everyone in masks and gloves, and it could be done very safely. And then you have to remove all the tables. The question, the $1 million question is, can any restaurant survive and break even with half your tables gone? It's going to be really hard. And like I said earlier when I closed, people want to gather. They want to hug and toast. And that's, that's why we have restaurants, to be blunt. So it's going to be a really hard struggle. And I have to say this, though. Please, please, please believe in science. For anyone, I'm sure everyone listening to this believe in science, but science is real. And there's still some people in certain states that are not closed down, which is just baffling me that we've not closed this country down. We've seen the data, we've seen the charts. It goes like this. We're right behind it. It's coming up. Isolate. You just don't do it for yourself. Do it for everyone else. Wear masks and isolate. You have to.
Yeah.
Have to.
Another question here from Chuck. Who says, presuming full service restaurants can add some sort of panel dividers between tables or space to seat more widely and equip servers and front of house people with strong PPE, are you confident that you can keep both the meals and the back of the house folks safe from a production standpoint? So I guess this, again, coming back in, are you imagining a world where there's PPEs for your staff and stuff, but can you keep everything safe in that production line from back of house to front of house?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, you can do it, but you have to then have half the cooks. You can't have a cooks next to each other like we used to. So like right now, today, every 6 feet is a cook, mask, gloves, the hairnet, the whole 9 yards. So if you have half the cooks and half the tables, you're doing half the revenue. So the question is, how many months can you do that before you're done? Right. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I mean, there's even air curtains that apparently can keep people apart from each other, and like you said, plexiglass, whatever. And the paradigm's shifting, and I think a lot of us are thinking and looking at different ways to redefine your food and beverage offering. Right. I think to-go food kits and to-go food and all these services are going to continue to go out of off the charts. I think there's restaurants becoming grocery stores, right? So you have the kits and things like that. I think we all, I'm just so glad I don't have a 500-seat restaurant, right? Can you imagine? And so now you're only doing 250 max. So that you're not going to cut it. So you just have to figure out, and believe you me, if I had the answer, that would be awesome. But how to keep the revenue coming, but it's going to be in a different form. It's not just going to be table service, and that affects everyone. I mean, think of every waiter in this country. How do they survive? They survive on tips, and that's from being all over you, literally, right? And now that's kind of pulled away. You're going to be, asking from 6 feet away, how was your meal? So the whole dynamic of service, and you become coming to my family. That's just changing, not for the better, right? I mean, restaurants have always been the place of solace and celebration, and you're really depressed and you need to do this, or you're really happy you do that. And if you have the 6 feet separation with plexiglass walls, I mean, that's more than just a little inconvenience.
All right, Ming, I got to let you go in a minute, but before I do, what are you cooking at home, and what should we be cooking at home?
Well, I just did a live on PBS Food. We just did it was actually really simple. It was a hot and sour chicken noodle soup. So sour from vinegar, hot from chili, chicken and big egg noodles. It's a good dish.
All right, Ming Tsai, thanks for
Edgar, dude, thank you. Chefs, thank you guys. Be good. Be kind. Be kind.
All right, and if you are just joining us, we are in the midst of our very first WGBH virtual Boston Talks. We're talking about restaurant tours and restaurants here locally as they're dealing with the COVID-19 crisis, like we all are. We just spoke with Ming Tsai. We've got some more guests lined up as we move forward. But before we do that, I just want to do a little housekeeping. Let you know, I think most of you have kind of picked it up. We've got a Q&A box that you can access at the bottom of your screen there, where you can submit some questions for me to ask our guests. You can also give them a little thumbs up so we can see which questions people really want to see get answered. So get active in there. We also have a chat function. If you have questions sort of a more technical nature or that kind of thing, you can pop them in the chat. If you have questions for me or for our guests, you can throw them in the Q&A. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III from WGBH's Curiosity Desk. We're going to move on to our next guest in a second, but we have a little bit of a tradition here at Boston Talks, which we're going to try to pull off in this virtual format, and that is a little bit of trivia. So basically right now, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to agree to participate to a trivia question. Now, normally at Boston Talks, I would offer to buy you a drink if you got it right. Here, there's not really a prize I can offer you, but I do hope somebody will take me up on this. So again, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little raise your hand function. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to play trivia right now, just a quick trivia question, we'd love to have you do that. Just so you know, we're going to put you on the screen if you do that. So take a look around your surroundings, take a look at what you're wearing, know that people are going to see your video if you agree to do the trivia right now. So here we go. Let's see if anybody's willing, ready, and able to play some trivia. Is it working? All right. I'm sort of looking at my screen now, guys, unsure of what's happening, waiting to see if we're going to have a trivia question being asked right now. Boop, 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 boop. All right, oh, here we go. Hello, is this Emma?
It's Connor. I'm Emma. Hello.
Hi, Emma. Hi, Emma. Hi, Connor. Where are you guys from?
We're in Allston, but we're from Rhode Island.
From Rhode Island, in Allston. How you doing? You staying safe and everything? Staying safe and sane?
Yeah, hanging in there. Emma is working from home. She works for Partners in Health. I'm Partners Healthcare. Sorry. I'm a waiter at Sycamore in Newton, which is shut down at the moment.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, hang in there, guys. Thanks for agreeing to play some trivia. Are you ready for your question?
We'd love to. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. So your question is this: American Cookery. Okay, American Cookery by Amelia Simmons is generally considered to be the very first truly American cookbook. All right, it's the first cookbook that contained recipes for things like Johnny cakes and what we would now call apple pie. It's also credited with being the first cookbook to suggest that cranberry sauce and turkey went well together. Your question is, was American Cookery published in the 1760s, the 1790s, or the 1810s?
I'm going to say 1790s.
Connor, that's the 1790s. Emma, are you with Connor?
Yeah, I trust him.
That's actually 100% correct. It was published in 1796. Way to go. Hey, Emma and Connor, before I let you go, and we're on the honor system here since we're virtual.
Okay.
But I will literally send you a check for $100 if you can tell me the official full name of the book. American Cookery. There's a little bit more.
There's a subtitle. American Cookery. Amelia Simmons.
American colonies. American Cookery.
And the colonial diet or something? No, but that's I don't think it's not like a sociological book. American Cookery. I don't know.
I'm going to put you out of your misery. The official title of the book, according to the Library of Congress, is American Cookery, or the Art of Dressing Viand, Fish, Poultry, and Vegetables, and the Best Modes of Making Pasta, Puffs, Pies, Tarts, Puddings, Custards, and Preserves, and all kinds of cakes from imperial plum to plain cake, adapted to this country and all grades of life.
We were like this close.
So
You
close.
guys almost had it. I was pulling for you. You almost had it. Connor and Emma, thanks for playing trivia. And my thanks to everybody who's joining us here for our virtual Boston Talks, and our thanks to our sponsors, Liberty Mutual Insurance, who are helping to make this possible tonight. We're now going to move on to our next speakers here for the evening. I'm going to welcome up to the screen, I guess, here we would say, Katrina Jazayeri and Josh Lewin. They are the folks behind Juliet, a restaurant in Somerville, and hoping they're going to pop up on my screen any minute now here. And we're going to chat with them a little bit about how things are going. There they are, Katrina and Josh. Welcome.
Hey there.
Hello.
How we doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Excellent, excellent. Well, start us off and tell us a little bit about who you guys are and how you came to do what you do. And tell us about Juliet. Tell us about you for folks who maybe haven't been there.
So Josh and I come from kind of different backgrounds that both brought us to the food industry. And we opened our first restaurant, Juliet, as you mentioned, in Somerville, just over 4 years ago. And at the time, and I believe still, we were the first restaurant in the state to pay all of our staff a full wage, including all of our service staff. And we also practice an open book kind of management model, so really engaging our whole team in how to run a business. And since then, we've also opened a restaurant named Peregrine, which opened about 9 months ago, right on Charles Street in Beacon Hill. I'll let Josh jump in as well.
Yeah, so between the two restaurants, we have about 60 seats plus a couple more that can come out around the bar, so two very small restaurants. And at Peregrine, we're completely closed with the current situation. And one of the main reasons that we're closed there is due to concerns around commuting and also the fact that we're in a hotel. So there were issues with multiple uses of the same space. And at Juliet, we're almost completely closed. We're offering a little bit of takeaway food on the weekends. This week, we're actually taking a break and redesigning how that looks with the staff. And this is all kind of a day-by-day response as things change and as we consider not just financial realities of our business, which we heard Ming Tsai say a little while ago. His restaurants were reduced to about 10% revenue based on what they were able to do right now, which is almost exactly the same for us. The math for us came out to about 8%. So we're living in a strange business reality where the finance really doesn't make sense. So we start thinking about the other areas that we impact with the work that we do. So obviously, if finance can't allow us to become sustainable, then we have a real issue at hand with whether or not we can even continue to do business. But at the moment, we're just proceeding ahead, trusting that we'll see ourselves through as a society, as a community, to the other side of this. And in the meantime, thinking about other important aspects of who we are and what we do as a business that are less finance related. So issues with how staff learn and are trained and interact with their work, and how we exist as part of our communities have kind of taken the forefront of what we do.
Yeah, I'm interested in both, Katrina, what you talk about, that idea of the model for paying your staff and also the open book policy that you sort of mentioned in terms of running the business. Talk a little bit more about what that means and how it's different from maybe how a lot of restaurants do things.
Yeah, so it's basically the concept is we let folks in, our team at all levels, about how we make decisions in the restaurants, our value systems and principles that brought us to want to be business owners. And we share that process with them, as well as the primary focus of open book management is a financial one, to sort of engage people to understand how a business runs and their role in impacting different lines of the profit and loss statement, which is actually becoming, really beneficial to us at this moment, where we can go to our staff and engage on these fronts. And there's the vocabulary kind of in place to say, like Josh is saying, okay, we no longer have revenue as our primary driver. That sort of goes counter to what most businesses define themselves as, but we consider ourselves to have many different bottom lines that include, our staff, the kind of company that we are, the stakeholders that are outside of our business, whether it's our vendors and the community at large. So we're looking at, how do we engage on those fronts, and having the ideas come from the very people who will help us kind of put it into action, which is really a blessing in this moment to not, we feel it's easy to feel alone in many different ways, and to be able to have this kind of like really committed, engaged staff who wants to, be coming up with ideas and working through problems in this moment is really wonderful.
So like logistically, how has that worked kind of through this, it's obviously like extraordinary times, but also like sort of fairly fast moving, right? Like you sort of had this sort of ramp up to this where it became clear that people were going to need to close. And then surely you had to make a whole bunch of decisions about how are we going to do this and how are we going to move forward? And that was probably changing moment to moment. So how did this sort of collaboration or this collaborative spirit kind of that you talk about with you and your staff, how did that manifest itself as this sort of last few weeks have unfolded?
Yeah, well, like you said, it happened quickly and it's continuing to change day by day. We're here about a month into the mandated closures of dining rooms, and 2 weeks plus since the federal government announced payments and programs through the CARES Act, and we still haven't figured out like the best ways to apply for those. This is, a lot of confusion, not just with the logistics, although that was an issue too. The banks actually being able to accept these applications, which might be interesting for people to hear, but also the way that the act kind of affects restaurants specifically, all kinds of confusion about how and when you hire people back to secure these loans. So all this confusing information, which didn't even exist in its basic way until about 2 weeks into the crisis. So we just kind of on day one said, all right, we're going to get the staff together, communicate everything that we do know. And the first thing we're going to communicate is the fact that, well, we don't really know, that the information is hard to stay on top of, and what we're doing, and even just telling them kind of step by step of what are we doing now. What we're doing is first we're going to get to a basic agreement together on how the next 3 days are going to go. Then we're going to try to give you a week, and then we're going to start looking beyond that. And what we're doing in the meantime is just trying to gather all the best information that we can, which is kind of an interesting position to put yourself in front of the staff, but we had a lot of practice with that because that's basically the way we run our business, which is to say we don't have all the answers. We're going to tell you the thought process behind the answers that we do have, and we're going to tell you the questions that are still outstanding. We're going to, as the leaders of the company, first ourselves, and now with a leadership team that includes 8 other people, we count on them to take those outstanding issues and bring proactive potential solutions to the table, and then from that actually trickles down to our staff. So all of that is vocabulary just involved with how we run Friday night's dinner service. This is how we work. So that left us a little bit better prepared to respond to the crisis situation. And one of the things that we came up with as we started transitioning out of day-to-day food service and into, well, how are we going to exist for now? Well, we want to train, we want to learn, we want to interact, we want to reach our community, we want to feed our community if we can, whether that's directly or indirectly. And thoughts about what indirectly might mean kept coming up again and again. So as a company, we run 2 restaurants now, and we also for a couple of years have been involved in various media projects for entertainment and information of the public. And we operate a magazine, we print a magazine, it's 3 years of that now. We also have a book out.
There it is. Well
the magazine.
Nice. So it's actually a physical, actual magazine. Fascinating.
Yeah, you can buy it and you can own it and you can hold it, but everything.
Hold it.
Almost
so
everything.
It's like an iPad, but it's like a bunch of different
paper.
Sorry, you can't really see it with the light behind it. But almost everything we do is also available for free online. So there's a print version, but for a long time, we've always made these things available for free. We want as many people to be able to enjoy it and experience it as we can. We have a lot of people on the staff who are artists and designers and writers and interested in these kind of projects anyway. In response to the crisis, and everybody wants to know, what can I cook right now out of my pantry? Like, what can I do? We actually have a book out in 3 parts called Bean Zine, and that's available in 3 different volumes, all of which are available for free online, but can also be purchased. And this is all about the things, we actually polled the public. Hey, what's in your pantry? What kind of recipes do you need? And then we had each of the chefs from our different restaurants put their take on the same ingredients. So all these different ways of looking at the things that you're probably stockpiling for now. And from there, we actually moved into some video work too. So I'm currently distributing the video through Instagram TV, but everything from cooking tutorials to bar tutorials, actually the cocktails that you see Katrina and I brought to the happy hour today, our manager, Sam Mangino at Juliet, taught you how to make these cocktails on Instagram today. And then engaging.
Wait, what are they?
It's a take on a Negroni. So a good one for early in the evening. Yeah. And then engaging with the rest of our team too, so that what you're seeing from that video content isn't just about the restaurants, but is about who we and they are as people. So everything from teaching how to do a handstand to how to make a crossword puzzle, to recipes that have nothing to do with the restaurants, and people just sharing a little bit of themselves. And these are things that as a company, we've always been very interested in and we've been engaged in. But what we actually have now is time we've like we've never had before. So what's always been kind of a hobby for ourselves and our staff has moved into more of a primary role when our primary business model has been interrupted. And we're taking payments for these things on kind of a pay-what-you-can basis, and we've had a lot of great support from that, but we just want to stay engaged. And yeah, that's yeah. So we're 4 weeks in, and
so you're not really that. So you haven't been staying busy. You're just
well, busy, and that's another thing. We need to be busy, and I think from a mental health and a physical health standpoint, we have like inertia is real, and we've come to this like full stop almost overnight for not just ourselves and our business, but for the 50 people that are impacted directly by our business who work for us.
Do you think that's particularly hard for folks in your industry, which is such a high octane, like oftentimes long hours, like, you know, just it is a go industry. So like, is that idea of like, I can't go in and do this thing that I do, do you think that's particularly difficult?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult, even just from a, kind of mental health standpoint. So we want to make sure that we're giving the people who are impacted by the work that we do and who help us do the work that we do day to day. We couldn't do it without them. Trying to just be creative about how we stay engaged with them for those reasons as well. So it's not really about money or revenue. Those questions will become very, very important in not too long. But for today, there's all these other ways that we can remain a part of people's lives and keep the momentum going and the learning going that make the business stronger on the other side of this, even though this is so difficult in the moment.
And sort of replace that, replace the kind of satisfaction and the joy that we get, especially speaking from the front of house perspective of getting to see people enjoy something, learn something that you can, teach them about a producer or about a farmer or things that, those conversations that happen across the table, to extend those kinds of interactions to our staff directly now. In that high octane and constant kind of environment, you often, miss these chances of connecting with the people closest to you, your coworkers. And, now having 2 restaurants, one of the, we're looking for silver linings of all of this. And one of them is that we've now been able to come together as an entire company and kind of have, we have a digital book club and different, we get together for our own family meal once a week where we all Zoom and talk, just talk together and like get to know each other. So certainly one of the things that we will continue appreciating in the future, but kind of acts as a replacement of, the interactions that used to happen with our guests and the, broader community. We're trying to keep that feeling going because I think it's important to most of us, if not all of us, and what brought us to the industry in the first place.
At the heart of it is the kind of making of food, and you guys are still doing that in one of your restaurants, you said, for takeout. Not this weekend, but at least occasionally you're doing takeout at Juliet in Somerville. What kind of stuff are you doing? How can people kind of get there to get some if they want to support you guys? Is it helpful for people to come and, help keep that 8% revenue at 8% kind of deal?
Yeah, kind of a complicated question. The revenue from what we're doing from a food service perspective is basically not part of a realistic profit and loss statement for the restaurant. So if you're looking for ways to support us, I wouldn't even necessarily say that coming and having dinner is the best way. If you want to have dinner and you want that experience, we have cooks who live down the street who are commuting by walking, keeping social distancing in place while they're working and trying to put together meals that are of a Juliet style that we can share with you. And if you want that to be part of your Friday night, that's why we want you to come and have it. If you just wanted to support the restaurant, there's other opportunities to do that too, from the products that are available online to gift card sales. and the books and the magazines and opportunities to contribute on a pay-what-you-can basis for the video content. All of that is just as helpful. And we don't necessarily need you to come across town out of your way because you feel an obligation to support us for dinner. If we can safely be part of your weekend meal plans, we'd love to be. But it's not even really about financial support at this stage. It's more about connection and interaction with what is available, what we're producing. We'd love to inform and entertain you in that way too. So the revenue is it's silly to even speak of it, but we're here, we're doing things, we're working, we're putting things out there that we believe in, and we'd love you to interact with them in whatever way works for you. So to get to family meal itself, which is what we call our takeaway service, the JulietSomerville.com website is the best place, and you'll get an announcement right when you arrive about how to get on that list. And on that site, we also have a web store where these products are available. The video content is on our Instagram. And we have another website for the media productions, which is ofjuliet.com, where you can read the magazine for free. You can get all of the cooking in the time of Corona beanzine recipes completely for free. And you can find a link to the video content, all of which you can also purchase, and you'll find those links too, but it's all available to enjoy while you're there as well.
Nice. I'm going to turn it over to some of our viewer questions, and thank you for being with us for our virtual Boston Talks. If you are just joining us, I'm talking with Katrina Jazayeri and Josh Lewin. They are the folks behind Juliet and Peregrine. Is that right, Peregrine? Did I get that right?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Miss Peregrine, the Falcon children's book thing. Yeah. Do you guys know that movie? No. Yeah.
Well,
Look it up. So we've got a Q&A section. You can access it at the bottom of your screen if you haven't, where you can ask questions. I'm going to turn over some of them. This is a question from Amy Traverso, and I like this question. I'm going to sort of expound upon it, but she's basically asking, are there restaurants in other cities that are coming up with interesting models that could help Boston restaurants weather this storm? And I'll expand that out to, do you talk with other folks who own restaurants and stuff like that? Have you been talking a lot with them through this? And are there restaurants either in Boston or elsewhere who you're batting ideas around about, like, surviving and future business models and all of that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's difficult to stay on top of the information as it changes day by day. And it's also been a little bit of a difficult pivot into just finding time at the end of the day. And, our primary focus is on our team for the most part, in all kinds of ways, training and just engagement and all the rest. But we are a part of a couple of ongoing conversations, some just kind of ad hoc locally, and others more formally through the James Beard Foundation and the Independent Restaurants Coalition, who are working on a local level, both from just an advice and sharing of best practices level, and then all the way up to advocacy at this local and state level and at the federal level, dealing with issues like the CARES package and it being a little bit overly confusing and unaware of some of the specific challenges for the food service business. So everything from, like, really local, what are we going to do today? How are our vendors impacted? What kind of opportunities are around? Ming Tsai earlier mentioned people who are ineligible for unemployment benefits for all kinds of reasons, and dealing with getting some information into the hands of people affected by the lack of employment for those reasons too, all the way up to the people who are renegotiating CARES packages and those things. And kind of the thread throughout all of it is everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing, and we're always happy to share and happy to listen, but there's just still a lot of confusion in the day-to-day, both in terms of how we respond today and long-term planning for how we start to look at the future. Yeah.
We got a couple of questions from folks here that are sort of dealing with basically servers, right? Like, so what is the role of the server going to be as this pandemic grows and as we come back from it? But also questions about, for example, paid sick leave is something that a lot of servers don't enjoy, right? So now we're talking about an entire industry being under stress in a way, that they've never been before. They're not terribly profitable to begin with for most of them, right? So basically, I think, there's a few questions here. Servers are in a tough spot. And so what are your thoughts on that and what the future of that is, like, as a job?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is sort of tragically shining a light on something that we've been aware of, and actually is some of the reason we opened a business the way we did, was realizing that the wage inequity between how everyone else in the world is paid and how service workers are paid, meaning the tipped minimum wage, is sort of, setting people up to be in such a state of insecurity that, this is obviously an outsized, and, it's global and it's huge, but a same scenario could happen to a server who breaks their foot, and they're unable to do their job. They go to apply for unemployment insurance and realize that they haven't been making enough wages, or their wages haven't been declared properly, or all these confounding issues that lead from that tipped wage are now going to be a detriment in the future, and people aren't really prepared or fully understand that when they enter the system, I don't think. And so that's why we were committed from day one to not having that disparate wage, so that everyone is sort of at an equal starting point, and that they have that reliance on, this is a real job, it's my profession, it's my career, and there's stability in that, and that there are certain things you should look to your employers to kind of help you along. We're being as supportive as we can to our workers about, okay, let's go through this application process, and what do you need to get ready, and who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, what are the reasons, how can we be helpful? So I think this is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people, that there are certain things about our industry that are long overdue for a redesign, and I think the impact to service workers in particular is going to be at the forefront of that. And I think, just like with all of this, we don't know what a week is going to look like from now. We don't know what 2 months is going to look like. But I do know that, of any industry, the hospitality industry is one that can be very dynamic when called upon. And I think we're going to come up with a way that the future looks for restaurants, that, if we put people first, and really hold on to that, and remember who is involved in making, the comforts and routine of our daily life possible, that we're going to come out on the other side and take care of people.
Is this going to forever change the restaurant industry? Like, is that already done? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or is it still possible that this is like, everybody's going to kind of hang on, survive, some will go away, whatever, and a year from now, 2 years from now, the restaurant industry looks very much the way it did before? Or do you feel like at this point you're already looking at it going like, this is going to be completely altered?
I think there's no way to know. If this goes until the first week of May and things start to go back to normal and we have graduation season, I think everybody listening is probably local to Boston, but the restaurant business is cyclical, and really hinges on a couple of big portions of the year. The holiday season, the fall season, and the college graduation season are big ones for the Boston market. And if it doesn't, if it's more like June, July, August, I think it's a different conversation. So it really depends on time. It depends on what types of restaurants can weather the storm. It depends on the federal response and getting relief money into people's hands, and whether we're left with more established restaurants, corporate owned restaurants that can rely on resources and go further into debt comfortably. It really depends on who's still part of that landscape on the other side of the crisis, which is mostly a time-based question and secondarily a relief response question. And that will actually, I think, inform a lot more of what type of change we see and how long lasting it is, as well as how quickly it comes to be. Depending on how the loans are handled from the federal response, you're going to have businesses taking loans, and it might look like things are okay for a little while, but there may be another 6 to 8 month period after business has gone back that debt starts becoming due. And so there's a couple of which may really impact small businesses if their revenues can't get into a place, or if they do miss certain important calendar benchmarks in the cyclical business season. All things that I really don't love to talk about. This is very boring conversation to me, but these are things that will make or break the landscape and will totally change what it looks like on the other side of this. And we may not know until 6, 8 months, 12 months after things reopen, because it'll depend on how quickly things can get back to a sustainable benchmark. And it's not just about being allowed to open, because loans and debt and different arrangements can keep things afloat for a little while. But I think we really won't know until we see the final restructuring of what that looks like, the final reckoning. And it has to do with how long it takes from now, and what kind of relief resources are available to those that really need them. The small businesses that employ tons and tons and tons of workers, and workers that really need good jobs. And that'll make all the difference.
All right. I got to let you go, but just like I did with Ming, and I know you've given us plenty of resources where I can get cooking ideas from the folks on your staff, but what are you guys cooking at home? What should we be cooking at home?
We're cooking all the same things you are, all those pantry staples that you stocked up on, and we put 3 whole cookbook volumes out for you. You can buy them from us, or you can get everything for free online.
Excellent. All right. Well, Katrina and Josh, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. Good luck. Stay safe. Stay sane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And thank you for being with us. If you're just joining us, we are in the midst of WGBH's first ever virtual Boston Talks. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III from WGBH's Curiosity Desk. You hear me regularly, maybe, if you listen on the radio, 89.7, maybe see me occasionally on Channel 2, WGBH. And tonight I'm with you, guiding us through this conversation with some local restaurateurs about how they are handling the COVID crisis that we are all dealing with right now. We've got one more guest left with us to speak with, the man behind Clover, Ayr Muir. We're going to talk to him in a second. But before we get there, we're going to continue, because it went so well earlier, we're going to continue with a little more trivia. So if you want to play trivia, for no prize, but just, for personal satisfaction and stuff, on the honor system again, don't have your cell phone in hand looking up answers, but give a little hand raise and we'll select one of you, if we can, to answer a trivia question right here on our virtual Boston Talks. We also want to thank Liberty Mutual Insurance for sponsoring us, helping us, supporting us in doing this, our first ever virtual Boston Talks. And I think I'm getting a little notification that we've got a trivia goer here. Anne, is that Anne? Do I see? Is that right? I think I lost Anne. I think I had Anne. Anne, are you there? Well, we said at the start, folks, this is a little bit of, there's Anne.
Yeah.
Anne, is this Anne?
Yes, it's Anne.
Hi, Anne. Anne, where are you from?
Waltham.
Waltham. And how you doing today? What are you up to? How are you feeling? Staying safe?
Good. Yeah. Just had our daily trip out to Costco to get out of the house. It's my husband and I both work from home. So.
And this isn't your trivia question, but did you wear a mask when you left, and did you wash your hands when you got back?
I did wear a mask in Costco. But then we went to the supermarket. We didn't wear a mask there, but I should have.
But did you wash your hands thoroughly when you got home?
No, but I will.
Okay, good. Good. Keep washing those hands, everybody out there. All right, Anne, you wanna take on a trivia question here?
Sure.
All right, we're staying food related, and this is a pretty simple one. I'm gonna give you multiple choice here, but the question is, how many farms are there in Massachusetts? All right, is it just over 3,000, just over 5,000, or just over 7,000?
I'd say 5,000.
5,000?
Yeah.
All Are you sure? Are you sure you think it's 5,000?
No, maybe 3,000.
But are you sure 3,000?
No,
Don't you think
7,000.
that's right. There are more than seven. That's it. There are more than 7,000 farms in Massachusetts. Let me get. You want to take another crack at it? You want to take another question?
Sure.
All right. All right. Here we go. So, of those 7,000 plus farms in Massachusetts, here's your question. So, the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, defines small farms as any farm that does under $250,000 of agricultural sales a year, right? So that's what they define as a small farm. So of Massachusetts, 7,000 plus farms, how many of those farms are defined as quote unquote small farms? Is it about 75%, about 85%, or about 95%?
85%.
Sure it's not higher?
No, 90%.
95% is just
95%.
94 point something percent of Massachusetts farms are small farms. Thank you for playing trivia with us, Anne. I appreciate it. Now, please go wash your hands and then get ready to watch the end of this.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with us for our first ever virtual Boston Talks. We have got one more guest to speak with today, and I think I'm going to welcome him to the screen right now. This is Ayr Muir, who is the man behind Clover. I'm waiting for him to pop up. Maybe he's here, maybe he's not. We do hope he's here. There he is, Ayr. Welcome to Virtual Boston Talks.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for staying patient. You know, when we do the regular Boston Talks, when you're the last speaker, it's not that, you know, it's not a big deal. There's a lot of people there. You got the bar, you're hanging out. But here you've been waiting and waiting and waiting. So thank you for that.
Well, I figured it meant everybody's a few in, so it doesn't really matter as much what I say. The pressure's off, right?
The pressure's off. Everybody's hammered right now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been enjoying listening to everybody else. I love Ming, and I'm really good friends with Katrina and Josh. Katrina's sister, Lucia, actually works for Clover and has worked for us for a long time. So we've got some connections that go way back.
Oh, amazing. Well, you know, before we get really into this, just give us a little overview for folks who don't know. Give us a little overview of Clover, who you are. You guys kind of have a little bit of a different thing that you do. So give us the sort of thumbnail sketch of what Clover is all about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little anticlimactic because I can describe what we do and you can't go in and you know, go get a sandwich. But I started Clover about 10 years ago. We started with food trucks. The idea was I was trying to figure out if there was a way to sell meals without meat to people who love eating meat. And so that's a mission we have, is to help people who love eating meat eat some meals in their day, in their week, in their month that have no meat. And so this has been you know, a mission we've worked on for 10 years. We've been, I think, a lot more successful than I expected with it, really. At the beginning, I wasn't even sure it would work. So we started with a food truck, and then 4 years later, we had 10 food trucks operating. We were the biggest branded food truck operator in the country, and we had the highest volume trucks in the country. And then we transitioned to restaurants from there. And now we operate 13 restaurants in the Boston area. So we're fast casual. I mean, if you're not familiar with Clover, don't expect to spend more than $10 when you come by. We sell sandwiches, soups, salads, and what we source, the menu changes all the time, and that allows us to get our customers' dollars to farmers, which is actually sort of, for us, we normally spend 60, 80 cents on every dollar we spend on food is to a local purveyor. So for us, that's one of the sort of added elements of all of this, is those folks that we've built relationships with, and we've become a very important part of their business and help support their farming and other things they're doing, which I really love. You know, all of a sudden we have to turn to them. You know, I have to turn to my employees and say, we don't have work for you, but I have to turn to my suppliers and say, I can't buy from you right now. And it's not something we've talked about so much in this already, but that there's a lot of hardship hitting distributors and producers who normally expect restaurants to be buying from them.
Yeah, let's actually get into that a little bit, because there were a few questions in the Q&A section from a number of people who were asking about the sort of supply chain side of things. So, you know, what is that looking like? What is that looking like? And are they feeling pain now? Do you expect that they're gonna be feeling pain? Like, what are there things you can't get? Like, where are we at on the supply chain side of things, as far as you understand it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe second to cruise ships companies and airlines, restaurants have felt the brunt of this. But I think right behind us, probably distributors. And you have to remember, a lot of these distributors, there are regional distributors in Boston that we work with. There's a wonderful guy who runs a distribution company called Shirazi, and he ferries a lot of the produce from Western Mass to Clover, and has made it possible for us to sell some really beautiful products that we really couldn't sell before we knew Josh, who runs that company. It's like a 3-generation company. And, all of a sudden, his only customers are restaurants. So, as we shut down, he shuts down, and he has all this inventory that he was expecting to sell everybody, right? So, when I call him up and I order products from him, he has to have them ready to deliver to the store that day or the next day. So in order to do that, he has a warehouse, and all of a sudden he can't sell that product. So we worked with Josh and some of the other suppliers that we love so much to try to help them out. In the early days of our shutdown, we set up like pantry boxes, so customers could come in and get a box of stuff. And we also did some things where we helped some of those suppliers sort of set up on a street corner, but we'd promote it. We'd let our customers know they're going to be there to sort of try to sell down some of the supplies, especially the perishable products. But I think we've been able to help a few, but I think the pain is probably very broad, and it's not just the people we work with. It's all of these distributors in the region, and then it's the suppliers that provide product to them. So this is something that's affecting restaurants and on back. And I don't know if this is something people think of, but a lot of times the people who supply restaurants are different than the people that supply grocery. And they're not the same business. They have different margins. They have different channels of operation. So, when I talked to Josh, I said, can you sell this through grocery? And, his answer is just, well, most of the grocery chains, you need to be certified. You need to go through process of being on board as an official supplier. And I'm not through any of that. So I don't know how I'm going to get through that in 10 days,
Wow, that's tough. So what are you doing at your restaurants, if anything? How, as the crisis kind of hit, how quickly did you have to make a decision? What decision have you made, and why?
Yeah, so we made a pretty quick decision. I think probably quicker than most in our industry. I did not expect we would have. I didn't expect we could operate without diners coming in. And so, the day after Charlie Baker announced that restaurants had to be takeout only, we furloughed all of our employees, including me, and we shut down all of our restaurants. So it's a temporary pause, obviously, until we can get back open. But we did that all at once. I think it was a good way for us to handle it, because I think it was a clean communication to our employees. We have about 300 employees. So I didn't feel, personally, as this was developing, I really didn't like the idea that I might be asking someone to go into work and interact with the public or whatever else, and who knows what's going to happen. And I think that that's very much on my mind with the reopen too. I really need some sort of testing or something in place, because I just don't like the idea of asking people to go into work and expose themselves, and maybe people have all different kinds of family situations, right? And if one of my employees got sick and brought it home, and then one of their, and they had a parent who is older and susceptible, like, I'd feel horrible. And, I think what we do is really important, but we're not a hospital, we're not critical in that kind of fashion. So it just seemed the right thing to do, to pause everything until we knew more. And that's sort of where we are right now.
All right. So what are you up to personally then, in terms of are you scheming the future? Are you, kind of adjusting and pivoting and doing different things? What are you up to?
Well, I'm playing with food. Well,
you're in the lab.
I was listening to everybody here, but I'll admit I'm in my kitchen right now. So while I wasn't on the camera, I'm making food for my kids for dinner.
Wait, you're literally making food right now?
Yeah, and pulling some bread out of the oven. So I just pulled this out of the oven. That's one of the recipes I've been working on. There's a guy, Richard Bourdon, who's an amazing baker.
Yeah, he does the slap method, right? Where he And
so I called him up when this all started. I had this idea of starting a cooking show for people, and I say Richard, who I knew a bit, but I've gotten to know him much better. We've been on the phone like 3 times a day, and I said, what can we do that people can do at home? We can teach people how just to use wheat. They might not even have yeast. So we've been working on a recipe for a spontaneously fermented bread where you just start with water and flour, nothing else, and it's been fun. We're getting there. I've had a lot of failures. Like that one looks really good, but you could have caught me 2 days ago and it would look like a brick. But we've been playing around with that, and I've been doing a cooking show. So I think that's where we'll probably feature some of the bread recipes as we get those honed in. But we've been doing a live show every day at 4:00 on weekdays. My thinking was it'd be nice for people to have something to look forward to, and it's pretty peaceful. I mean, we try to cover like 1 or maybe 2 things, and it's real time. So it's sort of like the anti-cooking show, instead of like, I did this and this and this, and I'm showing you some beautiful thing which you don't expect to make at home. You're watching me drop a spoon and do things like that, but also hopefully learning how to make some nutritious, delicious things that use pantry staples. And I know there are a lot of people stuck at home, and I know that a lot of people don't know how to cook. So I'm hoping we can help people out in that way.
Yeah. So where do I get, like, if I'm interested in this cooking show, where do I go? And how quickly?
Yeah, I'm not good at promoting the stuff yet, am I?
Yeah,
so it's we're doing it on YouTube. It's called In Ayr's Kitchen. So probably if you go to YouTube and you type in AYR, I'll come up because it's a pretty unique name. But it's called In Ayr's Kitchen, and you can watch all the previous episodes, and you can watch us live at 4:00.
So is this like for you, is this like I've always dreamed of having a cooking show and now is my moment? Or are you like, I never thought I would have a cooking show and this is weird that I'm doing it?
No, I'm not. I like watching the cooking shows. I like watching Ming. But no, it's nothing I ever dreamed of doing. But I just felt, as we were trying to think about what role, we can play, I think it's very tempting, there's a part of me that would love just to take a little vacation. We work very hard in this industry, but I also feel like there's needs and there's things that we can offer. So I thought this might be a way to help people cook at home. We're also trying to figure out whether there are ways, sort of maybe as Clover's getting started again, to help find ways to connect the customers that love Clover and we love, and we have a wonderful mailing list of like 150,000 people who, are awesome when we reach out to them. And if you're not in the mailing list, you can go to the website and sign up. We try.
That was better promotion right there that time. Well done.
Like that, I learn.
You are a quick learner for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to connect people with our farms and things like that using the that platform. We're also trying to think. I'm personally very concerned that we may have a situation where there are a lot of hungry people in our community, and I'm afraid some of those hungry people may be people who used to work for me or other restaurants. So depending on how this unfolds, I think we may find that there's some larger societal burdens. I think Ming's working on this right now, which is awesome. I'm trying to think of ways that we may be able to scale that. I think what Ming's doing is amazing, but 300 meals, we might be talking about needing 30,000 meals a day, or 60,000 meals a day. And I'm curious how that might play out. So we've been playing around, and I'd be interested if people watching this, how willing would you be to, if you bought a meal for yourself, also donate a meal for somebody else? I think that we're probably going to have to all pitch in together to take, I think we have the resources and we have the heart and we have the people in this region to get through all of this, but we are probably going to have to find creative solutions, and we're going to have to find ways to pitch in and help out our neighbors.
What are you looking at where you say, like, I think we're going to need to feed more people than we think we're going to have to? Like, what's happening in your brain, and what are you seeing that's what you're forecasting, or at least even considering?
Yeah, I guess it probably hinges on a couple things. One is I just think the impact on the restaurant industry, you're getting hints of this from Ming. And Ming makes some really good points. Like, we all pay this insurance, business interruption insurance. Then all of a sudden our businesses are interrupted and they say, sorry, we'll deny those claims. It's a pretty amazing feeling from our side. But I think that we're looking at a long recovery. This isn't going to be, we flip a switch. And restaurants, we measure our performance. Are we up 4% versus last year, down 3%? I can tell you most restaurants, if they're down 8% versus last year, they're having trouble meeting payroll. And we're looking at an environment where we might come back and we might see sales at 50% of what they were. You know, and so I think, how do you then operate and how do you move forward from there? It's going to be a hard hoe. And I know we're not going to be able to hire back all 300 people day one, you know, of when Governor Baker says restaurants can reopen, right? So it's going to be a sequential, you know, step-by-step process, and we'll get there to something that feels normal again, but it's going to take time. And in that time, I think there's going to be a lot of people in pain. And I also think another piece of this is, and you know, I think Josh and Katrina mentioned this a little bit, and Ming mentioned this a little bit, but we have some really good programs that are supporting people on unemployment and stuff like that. But there are people that slip between the cracks. I have employees who are, you know, we don't do any cash payments or under the table or anything at Clover. We're you know, a lot of restaurants do. We're a bigger organization, so we don't do that. But I have employees who are legal status for working, but they're not yet citizens, and they want to apply for citizenship, you know, in the next 2 years. And they're afraid, even though they've been paying into unemployment every month with their paycheck, they're afraid to claim the benefits because they're afraid it'll be held against them if they try to become a citizen in a few years. So they're holding off from it and trying to figure out what to do. And I think that, you know, we'll have to see how this all unfolds, but I think that there are a lot of people in really difficult situations. And, you know, maybe the most base thing is we can help at least make sure everybody's fed and has some empathy with that food, and that it's not, you know, it's food that tastes great and is exciting. So we're trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Talking with Ayr Muir, I'm going to turn to some of the listener Q&A questions here. I got a question here from Nicholas who asks, will the restaurant industry have to develop a totally new model of business before the 12 to 18 months or so have passed, when sort of imagining a vaccine or something's available then? Or is it changed for the future already at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I think the hard thing of this is there's a lot of questions we don't have answers to, right? You know, I think my business is a little different than the sit-down dining. But, you know, I have friends who operate other chains in Boston, you know, Tate, Life Alive, you know, Boloco, just thinking of a few, Seleniki, you know, Whole Heart Provisions. I mean, these are all people I talk to and I know really well, and we're all root for each other. I mean, we're competitors, but we all want one another to do well. And, you know, most of those I know who tried to stay open, you know, we shut down right away, but a lot of those who tried to stay open, we're hoping that, and I think there's maybe this expression in the popular media that, oh, the meals are changing, people aren't going in anymore, but now they're ordering out. But most people are seeing that their takeout orders and their delivery orders are on the same order as what they were before the COVID. So it's like, if you were doing 15% of your sales in delivery before COVID, you're doing 15% in sales delivery now. You're just not doing the other sales. Yeah. And that's why you're starting to see people start to shut down other things. It's not as though delivery made up for the losses. And that's a challenge. We have, we've all worked really hard to make businesses that, you know, we have good hospitality and we deliver great food and we try and create great environments for people, and we employ a lot of people and they're well trained. But when you have that kind of a business, it's not like a tech business where we can just pivot, you know, this idea of like, we can just change from one thing to another. I mean, how do I ask 300 people who've been trained how to make sandwiches every day to all of a sudden do an entirely different job? You know, it's a lot to take on. So I think there's a lot of questions out there we don't really have answers to yet.
All right, another question from one of our viewers here. You mentioned you were cooking for your kids. I think we might have seen one of your kids come through the screen without saying hi, which I think was rude. I mean, it's cool that your kid came through. I just wish they would have said hi. But question from them, what's something good and interesting and creative to cook for and with your kids?
Edgar, you're intimidating.
What?
I'm joking. It may be why they didn't say hi. No, we're doing a lot of fun things with the kids. If you watch the show, the kids have been joining me a lot. And I think it's really, one, I enjoy doing it with them more than I would if I was just doing it alone. I think it's probably a little more entertaining because I think they're more fun to watch than I am. But I think also part of the process of making food with them keeps me grounded. You know, I have to keep the recipes more simple. And I think as you're watching it from home, I'm hoping it gives people confidence they can try something. I mean, when, you know, my daughter Violet or my son Blue, who are like 8 or well, Violet just turned 9 or 10 years old, they can see that happening and try to take it on themselves. And we've been really excited to see all the pictures people are sharing of food they're making at home. So we're hoping people, there are a lot of wonderful things happening right now. There's all this scary stuff and we're trying to handle it, figure out good solutions. But, you know, we also have this opportunity to take a moment and assess our lives and sleep a little bit more. I hope people are getting good night's sleep. I know I've been sleeping more than I have in 15 or 20 years. And play with food. You know, it's we have kitchens, we have food. You can get food if you don't, and it's a big play space. So I think there's a lot of fun we can have. And I think as people a year from now are looking back, if anything, I could imagine people regretting they didn't take more advantage of this time.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're doing a good job of that? Are you like being weirder and experimental using new ingredients, or are you just like, are you just plugging along like?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Well, the Richard relationship like had me doing some very odd things. The show yesterday, we played around with a few of them. He has this idea, so he sort of hates starters, and I learned how to make sourdough bread with starters, and Richard's got like a philosophical thing against that. So he's pushed me into playing with some other things that are a little bit odd, and he has me trying to make this like injera style bread. So it's like you take wheat and water and you leave it for a really long time. Like he told me he left one for 18 months once in his kitchen, just uncovered.
He's
just
like
it's like
water.
It's just
sitting
water
here for 7 decades, and now it's finally ready.
And then you take it, and at that point he describes it as like a low gluten, high protein, low carbohydrate bread. It's, you know, loosely bread. It's like gloopy, but you can do funny things with it. And so I've been playing around with that a little bit, which is interesting. And you know, Richard has these ideas of where bread first came from and sort of trying to connect physically with our history and our past and our ancestors, you know, maybe 20,000, 30,000 years ago, by thinking about, you know, how they played around with these new ideas and fermentation, which is pretty fun. So I've been enjoying that and learning a lot.
Yeah. Have you learned anything about yourself that has surprised yourself about yourself during this? Do you know what I mean? Like, if
That's
you
a really
like,
good
wow,
question.
I would have, like, for me, like, I will say for me, like, I am watching way less television than I thought I would. If somebody told me that this was going to happen 6 months ago, I'd be like, well, I'm just going to sit there and watch so much TV. But I haven't been, and I'm shocked that I haven't been watching more.
Well, I would think that I would, I would have imagined I would rest more and just sort of take it easy and enjoy the time off. We all, you know, Ming works really hard. Josh and Katrina work really hard. I mean, this is a very tough industry, and we all are used to doing 14, 16-hour days. So I think if you told me 3 months ago I was going to have this situation, I'd be like, I'll just, you know, I'll lay around and read some books. And in reality, I've been a lot more busy dealing with, you know, keeping the business going, thinking of new ideas, dealing with the cooking show. But I'm enjoying all of it. And I think getting a good night's sleep is helping with that. It also is probably one of the best things we can do to deal with COVID. So I don't hear people saying this enough in the media, but like sleep 9 hours, sleep 12 hours. There's nothing you can do overnight that's going to improve your immune system as well as getting a good night's sleep. And we could probably all sleep more.
There you go. Words of wisdom from Ayr Muir. Thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you so much. And, you know, it's a hi to everybody out there. We can't wait to get back in. I'm looking forward to seeing people in the restaurants.
And we can see you 4 o'clock daily. Is that it?
That's right. Yep. 4 o'clock daily on YouTube in Ayr's Kitchen.
In Ayr's Kitchen. All right. And my thanks to you for being with us for our very first ever virtual Boston Talks. My thanks to all my guests, for you for taking the time. Stay with us. Keep an eye on WGBH events page. We are going to be doing another one of these next month. We're going to be focusing on fitness, both mental and physical, at home during this stay-at-home time. So stay tuned to WGBH.org/events for details about that upcoming. One thing I will ask, if you can, before you sign off from us today, is hit that little leave meeting button in the corner of your screen there. So go down to the bottom of the screen and hit leave meeting before you go. I think that just helps us out. So from all of the team here who has put in a lot of effort to make this work, from my guests, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III, thanking you for being with us for Boston Talks. Hopefully we'll see you next month. Take care, stay safe, wash your hands, be careful.